Hi friends, it's Terry Stewart, Independent Stampin' Up demonstrator located in the US and Maryland. Welcome to this month's vlog where we have a sketch challenge. So let's get started. So this month's sketch challenge, we're using a 6x6 DSP, and here's my sketch, my cutting template, and I'm going to be using the Sunshine and Rainbows DSP, and this is a celebration item that's available through the end of February with a qualifying order. And you can see all these bright, fun patterns and rainbows, and it's just so darn cute. And I've been having so much fun with it. And you can see there's patterns that can really be used for anything, very versatile. And you'll see today with my project that there is a variety of cards that you can make. And this is the pattern I'll be using today. So I'll be making 3 cards. And you can check out my blog at stampinghair.blogspot.com for all the measurements in both imperial and metric for this stamping project. So using my trimmer, the first cut I want to make is this 1.5 inch cut across the bottom for the whole 6 inches. Now this for metric, you have a 15.2 by 15.2 centimeters, and I'll be cutting at 1.5 inches, which is 3.8 centimeters. Now it does have a pattern on the back with these little hearts, pool party with little hearts. So that's the first cut. I want to make sure that my cut is at 1.5 inches or 3.8 centimeters. And I'll be using these in the landscape horizontal, which is why I'm cutting this way. So here's my, so that's my first cut. And then following my template, I'm going to cut 3 inches, cut this remaining part in half along the long side. So I'm cutting at 7.6 centimeters or 3 inches for imperial. Now I'm going to set these aside, and these for my next project. Coming back to this piece, so I have 1.5 inches by 6 inches or 3.8 by 15.2, and I'm going to cut these in 1.5 inches. So they're going to be squares, so 3.8, and you want to cut 1.5, cut each of these, so you'll have 4 equal squares when you're done. Right. And so that's all really the cutting I have. Make sure that you check out the description below and hop to the next participant. We all have exciting projects using this template. So my first project I'll be using is a Valentine card, and I'm using the hearts for this. Along with that, my pieces, I've pre-cut a lot of this since I did want to show you 3 different cards. Always in my heart stamp is where I get these little hearts on the front, and on the inside, Be My Valentine. For the other greeting on the front is a love and happiness from the January to June mini catalog, and I got that Valentine greeting here. For my dies, I'm using the Bouquet of Love, which is also in the mini, and it coordinates with this love and happiness. So this is a bundle that you can get. And I'm using the 2 dies from this. I'm using the small heart, which is stitched, and then this label die. So I pre-cut out 4 red squares to match my 4 pieces of DSP, and these are 1 5/8 square or 4.1 centimeters. You need 4 of those to go with your 4 DSP. I'm going to use a scrap of basic white to cut out my label and a scrap of real red cardstock to cut out 3 hearts. So I'm going to go off to my cut and emboss machine and make those die cuts and be right back. I've completed my die cuts. There's my label from the Bouquet of Love dies and my 3 hearts. Now let's get started with some stamping. I've got a pre-cut. This is my inside piece. It's 4 by 5 1/4 or 10 by 14.4 centimeters. I've got a piece that's 3 1/2 by 3 1/4 by 5 1/2 inches of basic white. And those centimeters I'll have to get back to you on this. Like I said, go to my blog, refer to my blog for all measurements. And an envelope that I will stamp on. So I'll be stamping on my envelope and my cardstock and my die cut. Let's start with Pool Party base, and this is just a half sheet of Pool Party cardstock, and I have cut it a full sheet in half and then scored that in half. And using my always in my heart, I'm taking these small hearts out and be my Valentine stamp. So starting with my Pool Party ink, I'm going to stamp on the top and the bottom edge of my cardstock. And I'll put these in a random pattern with some on the cardstock and some off the cardstock, just to give some visual changes. Make sure that you check out the description below to follow the hop and see the other projects. And while I have my hearts out, I'm going to stamp on my envelope, and I'll put a few hearts on the front just to carry the theme from the card to the from the envelope to the inside. And that is all the Pool Party stamping. And now I'm going to bring in my Memento ink, black ink, and stamp Be My Valentine on my label cutout from the Bouquet of Love. And that's what's really nice about these photopolymer, that you can see right through them and stamp exactly where you want the image to go. So I'm going to hold off on stamping my Valentine greetings until I have my card somewhat assembled, so the placement of that is accurate. So I'm going to assemble these squares with some glue. Bright, fun patterns. And I love the color combination of real red and Pool Party for Valentine. It's just a color combination that speaks to me. So while it has the red, the traditional Valentine color, it adds in this non-traditional Pool Party. I just love that combination, Valentine's. When I saw the pattern and the hearts, I had already determined that I was going to make a Valentine card. And then the other side is so bright and cheerful that I had a lot of creative ideas. I should be sharing those shortly with you. And now the final square. And we can place our parts on these squares. And I'm trying to somewhat center them, right and left and top and bottom. So that's the placement. Once I get one place, I'll repeat the same, line them up next to each other so they're similar when they have a similar placement on each of them. And then the final heart. And this will go on the inside. Now we can work on our white focal piece. Now I've used the stitched, double stitched red satin ribbon, and I'm going to place that right along the edge on the top and the bottom. And for that, I'm going to bring in my tear and tape. And I'll run that right along that top edge. So instead of using cardstock or DSP for that trim, in this case, I'm using the ribbon, which I think just adds a little interest and texture to this. So I'm going to cut my ribbon at 5.5 inches. Actually, I'm going to cut it at 6, so I have a little bit of leeway when I stick this down. So 6 inches, 15.2 centimeters. And it will help when I'm adhering this to have that little extra bit. And this ribbon is beautiful. It's so soft and satiny. And of course, it has the double-edged stitched on it. Remove the adhesive cover. And then place my ribbon right along that edge. Right along the cardstock edge. And I'll do the same for the other end. I'm using my grid paper to help me with the placement so I can line my ribbon up. And with my snips, I can just snip off these ends. That's why I cut a little bit long, just to have that crisp finished edge. And now I can bring in my parts and put them equal distance. So I want the same amount of space on the right and the left. And then I can just center the middle one. And this shows me now I can place my Valentine greeting. So my memento ink and my Valentine greetings from the Love and Happiness. I ink this up. And I'm going to place this right down between the ribbon and my red cardstock square. Perfect. Bring in my cardstock. Oh, forgot to adhere got ahead of myself, my hearts. So let's put these in there again. I'm going to do the left one and then the right and then the center. Do one on the right. And the same amount of distance that's on the left. I'm just eyeballing it. You could use a ruler. I just am eyeballing it today. And then this one will be centered between these two. And that's the nice thing about using liquid glue. You are able to move them slightly once you've put them down. And for the final piece, for the front, I'll be placing this right on the front with some adhesive, liquid adhesive. And then again, making sure there's enough, the same distance top and bottom, leaving the same amount. Good. And then for the inside, bring in my basic white, and I'm going to center my heart towards the top, but leaving in the center. I want to be able to write a personalized note in here, so that's why I'm putting this at the top of the sheet cardstock. And then this will go right across, and trying to leave the same amount of space on the right and the left, and then centering it in that square. And then this piece goes into this is our inside. Go. And we have a Valentine. Be my Valentine. I'll probably send this to my daughter, and my husband might get this one. So that's my first project. The next two have similar, where I have stamped on the back of the cardstock and used a die cut. So they all have a similar theme for this project. So I have these two remaining from our cut, our 6x6 DSP cut, and I'm going to use each of these on separate projects. So the next project is this card, where I've left the DSP intact and put a die cut and a stamped image on there. So the die cut, so here's I'm using a black cardstock base. It's a half sheet scored in half, a white insert, which is 4 by 5 1/4 or 10 by 14.4 centimeters. And then I have this piece for my stamped image that I'll fussy cut. And I'll be using the Friendly Hello Celebration set with this Hello Friend, and that's this image here. And I've decided to stamp that in Misty Moonlight, which picks up the color Misty Moonlight in the DSP. This is also a Celebration, a level 2 stamp set that comes with coordinating DSP. But instead I'm not using that today, I'm using the Sunshine and Rainbow. So this is a versatile set. My bringing in my dies, the tailor-made tags, and I'll be using the second from the largest with these angled edges. I'm going to take this to my cut and emboss machine. I'll be right back. And here's my tags. I love these tags. Not only does it give a stitched edging, but it puts the hole in for you, and the dies, if needed, also you can cut out reinforcements, but reinforcers for around the hole, that I'll be putting ribbon through this. So the only stamping on this is on this piece of basic white. My friendly hello, I'm using that signature stamp with Misty Moonlight ink. Ink this up in this. I love these bold images. It just really, the bold image is awesome. It's very attention, brings a lot of attention and interest to these projects. And that's all the stamping for this project. And then using my paper snips, I'll just trim around the stamped image, leaving a very narrow border. I hold with my cardstock with my left hand and drive it, so to speak, and leave my scissors in one direction. And then we can assemble. So I'm going, this is a, as I said earlier, it's a piece of black cardstock. It's a half sheet, and I folded the half sheet in half to make my card base. Using my DSP, which is 4.5 by 3, based on my cutting template. And I just will center this on the front of the card. I'm just eyeballing it. My tag, I'll be using, for my tag, I'll be using this Pale Papaya open weave ribbon, which is in the annual catalog. And as I said, the die cuts the hole for you, making it very easy to put this through. And then I'll snip off the ribbon, and using some white baker's twine, I'll just tie a little bow to keep these two ribbons together. And then just trim those ends. We'll bring this in, and I placed it so that the tag kind of goes off over the DSP. I just thought that that really added a little something to the card front. Adhere my tag to the front of the card. And then behind my stamped image, I'm going to use some dimensionals. I am a fan of dimensionals, so I use many of them. Maybe I overdo it, but I don't want this sentiment to sag any, so there we go. I'm going to place this in a landscape going off the tag. Now I'm going to trim these ribbons so they don't hang over as much. The final thing is to place my cardstock on the inside. Now I did not stamp on this. I felt like this was a generic greeting and I could write anything. I could write a happy birthday, a thank you, send an encouraging note. So I left the inside blank for that reason. So there's our second card. And then the last card is very similar. So we'll be using this DSP. For this one, I took the DSP and I cut it at 1.5 or 3.8. So I cut it into 3 extra equal sections and did that way. Now, if you're in a hurry, you may not have time to do that. And for that reason, for this card, I'm just going to leave it as is and stamp on it, similar to the last project. So we need to do a die cut. Since all these projects have a die cut, I have a piece of white cardstock and I'll be using my Stitch So Sweetly, and I'm using this third die, the third largest die, which will fit right nicely there. So let me go to my cut and emboss machine and make this die cut. I'll be right back. And here I am back with my Stitch So Sweetly die. Now I'm stamping on this with the Awesome Otter. Awesome Otters is another Sale-a-Bration stamp set, and it's just so darn cute. Love these little otters, and it's a birthday time or you're awesome. So I'm using this image and the hat and the birthday time greeting. I'm using my Memento ink to stamp my otter and my hat, party hat. So I'm going to ink up the Awesome Otter. And I'm going to put him towards the top, so and leaving room for the birthday greeting. And then we'll put its birthday time greeting right here below him. And then on the inside, well, actually on my, yes, on the inside, I'm going to also stamp my Awesome Otter. And this is actually in a portrait direction, so I'm going to stamp him in the correct position. I think on this sample, I actually put the hats on the bottom, doing a little bit different this time. I'm going to put the hats on the envelope. And now I'm going to stamp the hat on this scrap paper, and I'll be fussy cutting this out. I am getting a shadow, so I'm going to have to be very careful when I stamp on my front that I don't press too hard to leave that shadow. We'll just stamp randomly and across the bottom. I won't be filling in the center because the DSP will hide that. All right, and that is all the stamping for this project. So I will be coloring these images in and bring in my stamping blends. These are alcohol markers. So I have the Crumb Cake Combo, the Dark Daffodil Delight, the dark, well, actually it's the Light Flirty Flamingo and the Light Pool Party. So the Otter uses the light and the dark, and I'll start in the center, and I'm going to be using my wide brush. And this will color his belly. These do bleed, so make sure when you're coloring them you have some paper underneath. And because they bleed also past the stamped image, you want to get close to, but not right up on the edge of the stamped image. And then for the dark, I'm also using the brush tip. Be very careful doing his hands so it doesn't bleed outside the stamped image. And I tend to go right along the stamped image and then fill in, and once I have that edge colored. And with alcohol markers, the more you go over it, the more saturated the color becomes. So it's just layer upon layer, and they do not pill as water-based markers might pill the paper. Then fill in the rest. And it will cause some color variations, but I like that because, you know, fur is not all one color. There are different variations in it and shadows. So I'm going over where the shadow markers are. The Flirty Flamingo, I'm going to use the pointy end, the writing tip, to color in his nose. And then I'm using the pool party to give him a base to stand on. So I'm just going to outline around his bottom and around his feet. And this kind of gives him a shadow and grounds him so he's not floating in air. And for the hat, I am going to use pink to color in the base color. So the pom-pom's pink and the hat base itself is going to be pink, and then I'll add the Daffodil Delight circles on that. And I'll use the writing side to add those circles on the hat. Now I can cut out this hat, and I'm going to go right along the line. I'm going to place this hat in his hand so he's looping it up with his hat off. There that is. Now we can begin assembly. So I'm going to make this card similar to I made the previous card, where the whole DSP piece will be mounted on the front. So this just gives you some options. So you can make the cards with this being a solid piece once you use the template to cut. There's no further cutting needed if you would like. And this, our die cut goes right on the front, also flat, no dimensionals. So we'll just center him, and then center him right and left. And I'll use a dimensional for my hat. One dimensional will fit right on this pom-pom. And then one dimensional, covers come off, on the body of the hat. There we go. I like that this appears, I've tilted it to the right. It appears like he's going to be tossing it in the air, celebrating by tossing his hat. And then the inside, I'll put a piece with our little otter friend. And there's the hat. So you can see the cards that we've made with using the template, and each of the cards uses the DSP with a die cut, and on 2 of them we've used a stamp on the cardstock background. And this one, we could either, for this design, leave the DSP whole or cut it at 1.5 inches. Don't forget to visit the rest of the Blog Hop participants, Vlog Hop. Check out the description below for the link to the next Hop participants and get even more inspiring projects with this template. Remember to like and subscribe to my channel so I can bring you even more fun stamping projects. And until next time, remember, stamping is fun. Thanks. Bye.